Hello everyone, welcome to the Tech Podcast series. This is Lakshit Pant, contributor at Azure Developer Community, and today we are again here with another podcast series with agri-tech expert. And we have our expert speaker, Miss Anjami Nayyar, ma'am, who is going to be, we are with whom we are going to discuss about multiple spaces, agriculture, tech, entrepreneurship, and a lot more things. She's one of the, few women in India who is working in this digital agri-tech space, and she has an I should say incredible expertise in the latest digital farming and technologies, and she's helping farmers improve their agriculture experiences. So now we will try to understand from her experience how this space looks like, what are the challenges in this, and what exactly all this the merge of the sum of agri and tech looks like. So first of all, ma'am, if you could start with your quick introduction.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm Anjami Nayyar. I'm a CEO for Knowledge Network Solutions, and currently I'm also helping another organization called HyfunFoods with their digital transformation. So, this is a little bit about me. I have been working in the ag tech space for a number of years. I have about 25 years of experience in this sector, a lot to do with technology and then with agriculture. And I think I'm a farmer by choice.
That's a pretty nice introduction, and thank you for that. And starting from the very first point or the very first word that you have used, farmers. So I just wanted to know how you became involved in this digital agri tech space and what led you, because when we talk about farmer space or agriculture space, that covers majorly 70% of the entire ecosystem, right, and impacts every segment of, maybe globally it impacts every segment of living. I just wanted to
Yes.
know, again, when we say about 70%, but at the same time it's very disorganized, because there are a lot more challenges. There are these remote places, we have uneducated peoples, and a lot more challenges in that. So I just wanted to know how you became involved in this space.
So I have been working in the technology space forever, almost like 18, 20 years. And agriculture was always, I come from a family of agriculturalists. I mean, the basis of my family was agriculture. And another thing was that I grew up in Africa. And agriculture there is part of your education. So when you go to school, production unit, as it is called, is, it's part of your syllabi. And this is of great interest to me, and it was very disheartening to know that, because of vagaries of nature or other infestations and things like that, our food security was kind of challenged with growing populations. And I thought this would be a sector which would need a lot of innovation. It's very difficult to kind of control climate per se, right? Because that would need a lot of global intervention, and you would need to have a lot of people on board. But I was just thinking, other than just telling people on that it's going to rain tomorrow, or it's going to be cloudy tomorrow, it's going to be humid, it was very important to sort of be able to at least, if not control, at least be forewarned about a number of problems that could come about. And therefore, I thought that this combination of technology and agri would be the best way to give back, to where I have originated from. And
Okay.
it was very, very important for me to do that. And that's why ag tech. And also, if you look at, if you look at India or a lot of Asia, and if you look at Africa, both the places have, different challenges, but very deep challenges, which is very difficult for, for the from the farming perspective. And I felt that we needed to address both.
Because as you have mentioned, you started your career from a tech background, and you have worked in the for 18 years, or about 18 years in the tech industry. I just wanted to know, because I'm also in the similar tech industry, and we hardly get any chance to visit all these farmers and think about, something out of the box that can be very much, we are made up something like this, so we try to find the solution that is around us. Now when we talk about agriculture, maybe because you have that background, and alongside with you we have that space in your home. But how does this merge of agriculture came up to your place, and how this ecosystem of farmers through digital platforms? Because when we talk about digitalizing all the farmers, it's very tough, because the farmers sometimes do not want to change or adapt. They are very resistant to these tech savvy things. And B could be maybe the internet, or maybe the availability of the tech that we so as what we call it. So how do you ensure, or how do you manage to do that?
So that was the reason when I came up with something called the Kisan Unnati card. And that was very, very important to me because, see, if you, like I talked about two different continents and their challenges, the biggest challenge, if you look at an Indian farmer today, is that Indian farmers are fragmented. Even if a farmer owns about 10 acres or 20 acres of land, his land is still fragmented. You don't have large pieces of land which are together. And another thing is that a major part of India is a smallholder farmer. So if you look at, for example, if you look at a state of Haryana with 16 lakh farmers, out of those 16 lakh farmers, if you were to take an average size of land, which is about 2.5 acres. So with tech development, people have concentrated a lot on, IoT devices. You look at drones and, you have, I don't want to name companies, but you have, let's look at this satellite imagery. What will you do with the satellite imagery of a 2.5 acre land?
Right.
Would you actually be even able to see what you're looking to, what are you looking at? What is
Right.
the satellite imagery going to tell you? The satellite imagery can only tell you a little bit about the foliage,
Right.
but it's not something that can actually tell you what the crop looks like or what the crop is going to be like. It's not just the green color, right?
Right.
With satellite imagery, and then people talked about drones, but then drone in a 2.5 to a 3 acre or even a 5 acre space, does it make sense? Is it like is it really something which is viable? Does it give you an ROI? And then you
Yeah.
look at internet of things, we have so many IoT devices that we're talking about temperature, we talk about moisture, you talk about soil testing, you talk about a number of other all kinds of devices which have come into play. But how many of these devices actually address the need of a smallholder farmer? How many smallholder farmers are actually able to utilize any of these? Forget about adaptability. Right now, the farmer is a semi-literate farmer. He does understand the need for of technology, and the Indian technology market is very dynamic. So,
Hmm.
it's not just his resistance to adapt, but how does he adapt? What about the cost of it? Right?
Right. Right.
So people, I mean, it's very unfortunate world, whatever you may say, it's very self-serving. So
Exactly. Right.
I think more than digital, it was very important for me to come up with business models where it would be a win-win situation for everyone involved, whether it was a smallholder farmer, a large holder farmer, a tech company, and the other people who are involved in this ecosystem, right?
Okay. So you have
Until and
mentioned.
unless it, yeah,
Yes, you have
sorry.
mentioned something about maybe I'm sorry to cut you between you. It's like Unnati Kishan card, right? What this is all about? Like, is it something with government or what?
Yeah, it's very funny. People think it's with the government, but unfortunately or fortunately, we haven't really tied up with the government yet because I still need to kind of have enough data to show that this is viable, and and we are making sort of great strides with it. So the whole idea was that whilst you have FPOs who are addressing the market linkage thing and so on, it was very important for us. And then you have these self-help farmer groups and things like that, but we wanted the farmer to feel empowered. So with this card, for a very, very small minuscule kind of a fee, where he feels empowered, that this is not a excuse me, I'm sorry, that this is not a dole out to him, and he takes this thing very responsibly. We created this card whereby he can purchase a lot of the input, which is at a more subsidized rate with certain amount of discounts attached to it, like you know, and like the values you create using something like a credit card. But this is not a credit card. There's no amount which has been put on it. And another thing that comes with it is that if this person uses this card and he registers with us, we are going to provide him the entire farm management. So people are using nowadays a lot of mobile application. I myself have helped build about 5 applications. But what is the challenge? You can have a mobile application and say, oh, click a picture and send it to me, versus an agronomist actually visiting you on your farm and telling you exactly what to do. There is a lot of difference.
Yeah, so
And
I
at
just
the same time, this person gets an opportunity to use a number of IoT devices, which any large farmer would be using.
now I want to, maybe highlight the role of startups here. You mentioned about these applications that are in the market right now, and you work with all these startups, you mentor them and create, building all these digital platform, I could say, for farmers. Can you give us an example of how these platforms are making maybe a difference in farmer lives? Because I saw a couple of them, maybe, helping these farmers getting knowledge about what they should really grow, and what they should focus on, what type of crop they can utilize, they can grow at what particular time, and what kind of pesticides or these chemicals they can utilize in order to grow a really good crop or something like this, by analyzing their land. But ultimately the farmer is being doing that same work from his for 20 odd years, like 20-25 odd years, and that has been an ancestor call, right? So how this change, one person coming in, one application coming in, can make a difference and make a, that's a very opinionistic, I could say. So how does these startups or these applications are putting something in that is really valuable, and ultimately there is something ROI for the business, for the startup owner as well, and for the farmer as well.
So let's talk about the farmer first.
Cool. Yeah,
So
sure.
from the farmer's perspective, if you it depends on how you give advice, right? So a lot of the advisory, for example, these applications have been able to make a slight difference, and the only difference that I see today in the market is that, number one, they help you to collect a lot of relevant data, which can in the future be used for a lot of predictable kind of analysis. The other thing that these applications do or add value is when they're giving the advisory. So for example, if you come to know what the weather is going to be like tomorrow and you're sure of it, then you know that there are certain tasks. So if it's going to rain tomorrow, you know that tomorrow is not the day that I should be putting any fertilizer, right?
Right,
And
right.
at the same time, it makes you conscientious. So for example, if you are repeatedly told something, wear a seat belt, you kind of become conscious of it, and maybe after 10 times you will start doing it. And this is the same thing with a farmer. When you tell him what is the need of precision farming, that only this much of urea you should be adding and not a lot of it, and how it is going to affect his crops and things like that, this does add a bit of value. Now when it comes to the farmers, but when you talk about a number of these startups coming up, what happens with the startups is that when you have a startup, it adds a lot of value to the economy of a country. When you look at it brings about a lot of innovation and creativity. There are a number of job creations that are happening. There is an economic growth which is coming up, and
Understood.
also disruption of traditional industries. And it's not only just about the startups. A lot of this startup innovative culture is eventually kind of drilling down into the existing companies, and encouraging them to be more innovative. And therefore it also brings a lot of agility in the market and adaptability, right? And also another thing that happens with these startup is that there is a lot of globalization and market expansion if you kind of really study this startup culture. And
Okay.
on the whole, like if you look at these startups, they often encourage experimentation and innovation, so which is a
Right.
good thing, because today you're innovating for a large scale farmer. Tomorrow I really would like to encourage startups that, bring down the cost and innovate only for the smallholder farmer, or
Uh,
rather innovate keeping the smallholder in mind.
right. Because if there are maybe that, so I see the segment like this. If there are 100% farmers in this country, then it could be something like 45% large scale farmer and 55% these small scale farmers, which plays a
Larger.
major role in the economy, right?
They're
Even more.
larger.
Yeah.
They're more than 65% farmers who are actually smallholders in India.
Yeah, exactly. So I just wanted to understand it from a 30,000 feet, like suppose if I'm just maybe growing rice on my place, right, or my land. Now some startup coming in and he's telling me that you need to grow rice in different way, right, and you will grow better results. Now again, and you have to, for this advisory, for some time it's like a freebie model or something like this. Then you have to pay also along, like for these their particular supplements or whatever they provide, right? How this works for startup thing, from the startup perspective, it's really working fine. But when it comes to farmers perspective, I'm really talking about for the small scale farmer, and even somewhere large scale farmers do impact with all these statements. Why? While we all, as a human being, we all have these intuitions, like it's gonna rain or not or everything, right? So how, and by the revolution of internet, everyone has access to internet and we can see everything, right? So how does these startups are helping? I just wanted to understand it from a very ground level.
See, a lot of these startups are helping because there is a reach, right?
Okay.
A number of these startups are aiming a particular segment. So there is a chance of reaching out, and there is a chance of innovation. So I'll give you an example. I won't name the company. So there's an international company that I worked for, which is about 125 years old, a very large input company, and they have something called a particular device which tests the nitrogen, right? When they
Okay.
started off with this particular device, it was costing about more than 15,000 USD. And when they
Okay.
realized, when they were to innovate for India, and they had to come down from that large piece of machinery, which would go on large, which, in Europe or in America, where you have very, very large fields, or Australia, they brought it down to a small little clip which could be clipped onto your this thing, and the cost of which was somewhere around 1,500 rupees.
Right.
So, that is innovation. And this was a start,
Yes.
this was from a large company. Then it went down to a little startup which thought, okay, this is a great idea. Let me bring down this cost and make this thing available to a smallholder farmer.
Yeah, and I just wanted to discuss and maybe later, but maybe I want to highlight this point. Like, so I belong from a hilly region. There, we don't see tractors often, right? We can't,
Hmm.
because these are step-based farming there, so you can't put tractors right over there in the fields. So now there is something we new that has been introduced, like hand tractors or something. So that is something new, innovative that has came up, and now there are some big
Exactly.
players which are coming to this, hand tractors concept, and there are multiple things that are coming up continuously. And yeah, people are really adopting all these changes, I have seen. So yeah, so now a little bit taking this to forward to emerging technologies. You have mentioned staying updated on the emerging trends like precision farming, IoT, data analytics. Again, now the new topic like AI and ML comes up. How are these technologies reshaping the agriculture as per your experience?
Absolutely. Now, when you look at, when you look at companies, let's say, I do not know if I should really be naming a company, but if you look at a large pesticide company, which is now sort of providing pesticide spray as a service, like a SaaS model,
Okay.
right? So they have got now a number of drones. So they not only just sell you the product, right? The value add is they spray it for you.
Okay. Okay,
Okay,
got it.
so
Got it.
there is that part of it. Then when you talk about let's say a number of input companies, when earlier when you were looking at a number of input companies, they were only just selling the product to you. Today an input company uses a number of startups and it tells you, okay, how much nutrient your plant actually needs, right? Either they
Right.
would do soil testing, and now there is a new device which has come up. I can't really name it, I don't have the authority, but I'm helping them with it. And with that, you can actually just clip it onto your leaf, and you will know the number of nutrients. If I already know that such amount of NPK is in my soil, then what am I going to do? I'm obviously not going to put it, right? I'm not going to
Right.
add more of it and make the soil toxic. Then the
Yes.
other things which are coming up are that the number of and if you look at besides this, if you look at irrigation, we have such a lot of water shortage. And if you look at some of the new devices which have come up, where the IoT will tell you, okay, now your sprinklers need to come on and now they need to be switched off, because it
Okay.
can measure the moisture. So for example, like I work a lot with potato farmers, so you need about 60 to 65% of moisture in the soil. So tomorrow, if if it's looking very dry, or the ambient temperature has to be 22 degrees or 25 or 26 degrees, if the temperature is increasing more than that, you have a device which is telling you that it's increasing, and it can save the crop to a very great extent. And if you are again looking at again talking about water, so if you're looking at drip irrigation or you're looking at sprinkler irrigation, these are very, very important, and these are new technologies which have come up. And earlier they were only available to large farmers because you had to build an entire architecture under
Right.
the soil. But
Right.
today you have devices where you as a simple farmer can just cut a pipe yourself, and you will have connectors with which you can connect. And at the same time you have a device or a small kind of a sensor which will tell you that yes, do need to irrigate or you don't need to irrigate. And if you do need to irrigate, the sprinklers will come on irrespective of your availability or not.
That's very fantastic. You explaining all these examples and delivering all the, that what's exactly happening in the market. Now, I would like to know how, because there is a lots of involvement of logistics we can see in this farmer, farmer centric business or in agriculture sector. So, how do we segregate the supply chain? Maybe reaching out these customers. How one should generate the leads if he's working in the agri or maybe agriculture startup or something like this. How do you generate leads to reaching out those customers or the farmers at very small scale, at the same time to very large scale farmer?
So FPOs are farmer producer organizations. So
Okay.
they are several, and we have really large and very a lot of good FPOs who are playing that role of being market aggregators, where they are collecting, from smaller farmers and sort of all the produce, and connecting them to larger markets. One is
Wow.
that. The other thing is, I think with HAFID and NAFID and all of those, the government has also done a lot of good job with it. But more than anything else, if you look at our capacity, so in India we have, I think, uh, our capacity for cold storages are much lesser. But I know of a
Hmm.
company, a startup with which I am an advisor on, who have come up with these small, very small, almost like 6 by, I think these are approximately like 8 by 6 kind of rooms, which are, these are cold storages which are mobile, and you can go to smaller kind of areas and you can sort of place them there. So and the charge is about 3000 rupees a day, and for example about 5 to 6 farmers using it together to keep their
Okay.
crops, which is not very expensive for them,
Right.
instead of throwing the crop and putting it as waste. Another thing is that a lot of processing companies are coming up closer So, for example, like I work with this company called HyfunFoods, or you look at the McCains of the world, they're all here in Ahmedabad or area which is like a potato area, and where they're putting up their processing very, very close to from where they can go get the raw material. And
Okay.
thereby, through using contract farming, they are sort of helping the farmer to kind of sell their produce. And I think yeah, so FPOs, contract farming, reaching, and the India infrastructure is also becoming better. And by providing these eco-fresh kind of small size small size cold stores, or like large refrigerators, or whatever you would, or deep freezers that you can call. And for a similar crop, because the temperature for every crop varies, so they are able to kind of create that kind of storage at a very
Okay.
minimal rate.
Okay, that's fantastic to know. Now, moving a little bit ahead. So, for with every industry, there comes the challenges. So, what are some key challenges that you see from two perspectives? Like the one is for the the in the agriculture food industry faces, and how the tech is helping to address all those challenges. And second, what are some challenges these farmers are facing? When adopting some new digital technologies, and how these challenges can be overcome, or you have done so far.
See, again, I would be repeating myself. I think you've asked me this before, but nonetheless, I would like to repeat. So, if you look at a smallholder farmer, a fragmented farmer, he has lots of challenges. It's very formidable situations that they have. That as much as they would want to be innovative, as much as that they would want to adapt, it's very difficult sometimes because of the expense. And look at the
Right.
size. How do you do it? So this is where I saw the challenge, and I wanted to jump in and help with this. And that's exactly what we are doing. We are trying to provide all of these expenses devices, or these SaaS models, at a very, very minuscule rate to the farmers. One is this. The other is that, again, now, as India keeps growing, and because of our culture of always passing our land to the next person in the generation. So you have a piece of land, you have two kids, you divide it, right? Again, the land becomes more fragmented.
Right.
And so this is somewhere, you really need to educate the farmer, or you need to educate the people, those who are taking over the land, to say that this fragmentation is going to cause a lot of damage. Another
Right.
thing is very important, is, and which a farmer should actually adapt, not just most important thing is sustainability. So when you're looking at a sustainable farmer, people keep talking about regenerative farming. For anybody to regenerate the land takes over 40 years. So how is
Mm.
this farmer going to eat if he's just got about 3 acres of land, or 2.5 acres of land? It's very important for us. So therefore, he would need good nutrients to get a good crop or a good yield, not just in quality, but not just in quantity, but also in quality. So that is
Right.
very important for him. So this is where the precision farming comes into play, where you're not really a farmer who's not using any nutrients, but you're only using those nutrients which are absolutely necessary, and you create that balance, right, using precision farming.
Got it. So,
And that way you also save a lot on your money. So if it costs you about an acre, right, 1 acre,
right,
it costs you around 1 lakh of rupees for an acre, and if you're able to bring down the cost to 90,000 or 80,000, that's a lot of value add, isn't it?
right, definitely, that's a fabulous value add service that one can get. And now, talking about the little bit future perspective, what do you envision as the future of this agriculture industry here in India, and how it can contribute to maybe India's growth as a superpower? And there are some new terminologies that I see coming up, some new types of farming, like that this new terms that I recently heard about, hydrophonics, right? If I
Hydroponics.
hydroponics,
hydroponics, aeroponics, and
right?
so on. So you see, in India, I think hydroponics is good. Aeroponics depends. Like if you're going to do some kind of culture, tissue culture or something, aeroponics is very good to bring about seeds and all of that. But having said that, I think the future of India is not about just hydroponics or aeroponics or just adapting technology. I think it is about creating awareness, which I think we have in India. We have
Right,
talked a lot about agriculture and the technologies. And I
right,
think most of all, like I would say again and again, making all of this technology accessible to a smallholder, because the major part of our country is a smallholder farmer, and they
right,
contribute about 18.8% GDP,
right,
of the GDP and the food security. So, for any nation to do well, food security is paramount.
right.
And to bring about that food security, it is very, very important for us to empower the smallholder farmer. And by empowering, it does not mean that giving them credit and not taking the money back. That is not empowerment.
Right. And now I'm seeking for your advice for those aspiring agri-tech enthusiasts. I've heard this somewhere, maybe one of the very renowned founder of this fintech industry said this. If one wants to make $1 trillion company in next 5 or 10 decades, maybe in next 2 or 3 decades, he should invest his time in, the next evolution that will come. It will be in definitely agriculture, and one who will solve all these climate or agriculture related problems. Maybe, and when we talk about $1 trillion industry, so that's pretty much a big number. When someone from a fintech industry predicted that number, I would just like to know what are your thoughts, and what what key areas you see, or what missing, you know uh, I'm not getting the right word, what missing points that you find where something could be improved and improvised in order to get up to C and above.
See, I think you have to remember that agri-tech has the potential to revolutionize agriculture. Okay.
uh, yeah.
And while you're revolutionizing it, most important thing is making it more efficient. You've got to make it more sustainable, and you have to make it more productive.
Okay.
And by sort of combining your passion for technology, uh, you also need a very deep understanding of agriculture, so you can actually make a more meaningful impact on the lives of farmers and the future of food production.
Thanks for your kind notes. And by this, by moving on to the conclusion, I just wanted to hear from you some final thoughts or key takeaways you would like to share with our listeners, who are interested in this intersection of technology. And definitely, I would like to, maybe I'm just studying a little bit. Just one more question I have: how do you balance all these roles as maybe a CEO of Knowledge Network Solutions, and again CTO of HyfunFoods, and again mentoring all these young startups? How do you manage and balance all these things?
It is, I think it is, the most important thing is your passion,
Okay.
and is what a lot of people will tell you, but I think it is compassion.
Okay.
When you want to actually make a difference, then you kind of get the energy and you're able to balance things out, because when you feel for others and you feel for the society, I think all the other things just follow suit.
Thank you for your kind notes, and thank you for all the information that you have shared with our listeners. And it was my pleasure to host you for this podcast, and looking forward to learn more from you and do future endeavors. So thank you for joining in for this podcast, and thank you everyone for listening to this podcast. See you for next time.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate being here. And, my final words would be, please innovate for the smallholder. Use
Right.
technology for the smallholder farmer. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, man.
Okay, take care. Bye bye.